In this video lesson, we will learn about the law of sines. This is a law which is about triangles. So let's say we just got some triangle. I'm going to label it A, B, and C. And its sides I'm going to label A, B, and C as well, where the lowercase letters go opposite of the uppercase letters. And the law of sines tells us that A over sine A equals B over sine B equals C over sine C, with the capitals as I wrote them. So in other words, if we pick any side and we divide it by the sine of the angle opposite of that side, we will always get the same number. Alright, so let's do a few examples and figure out how this really works. Problem 1. So we're given triangle A, B, and C, and we're given the length of side AC and the angles. So first, I label the opposite sides. Opposite of A, we have lowercase a, and opposite of angle C, we have lowercase c. And by the law of sines, we know that 6 over sine of 70 degrees, because 6 is the opposite side from 70 degrees, is equal to A over the sine of angle A, but we don't know the sine of angle A quite yet. So we're going to have to use the fact that the sum of the angles of a triangle is 180 degrees. So we have x plus 58 plus 70 is 180. And then I would simplify this, and it's x plus 128 degrees equals 180. I'm about to fix it. So we have 58 plus 70 is 128 degrees. And that simplifies, we subtract 128 on both sides, and we get x equals 52 degrees. Alright, so now we know what angle A is, and we return back to our formula. We have lowercase a over sine of angle A, opposite of the side, and that's 52 degrees. And this equals, also by the law of sines, C over, and the opposite angle is 58 degrees. So our job is to find A and C. To do that, first, I just look at the first part of the expression with just the first equal sign, and that's sine of 70 degrees. And to solve for A, we just have to multiply by sine of 52 degrees on both sides, and we'd get that equal to A. So now I plug this into my calculator. This sort of problem always requires a calculator because you're going to get a decimal of some sort. And you get A equals 5.03 after plugging it in. And now we're going to similarly solve for C. So I have 6 over sine of 70 degrees, and I'm going to erase this grouping. And we multiply this by sine of 58 degrees, and that equals to C. Alright, so now all we gotta do is plug this into a calculator, and it will give us the decimal answer. Specifically, 5.41 is equal to C. So now I can label it on the diagram. 5.41. Alright. So those are our two answers. Side BC has length 5.03 and AB has length 5.41. So let's move on to another example and make sure we really got the law of sines down. This time it's a written example. We have triangle ABC, and we have the two angles A and B and a length given. So first and foremost, we want to make a diagram. And to make this diagram, it's easiest to first draw angle A, which is 85 degrees, which is really close to 90. And then draw B, which is 30 degrees. So we have these two angles, and now we can label the side, and that's side AB. And it has length 4. So now we will label the third point, where the two lines intersect from 30 and 85 degrees, and that's point C. Now I label lowercase b across from uppercase b and lowercase a across from a. So first things first, we're going to want to find the third angle in this triangle. And we do the same thing as before. We know that the sum of the angles is 180 degrees. So we add them up and we get x plus 115 degrees equals 180 degrees. And then when we subtract on both sides, we get x equals 65 degrees. So we found the third angle. Now we can just apply the law of sines. So the law of sines tells us that 4 over the sine of the opposite angle, 65 degrees, is equal to a over, and that's over the sine of the opposite angle, 85 degrees. And that is equal to b over, and b is opposite from 30 degrees, so it's b over sine of 30 degrees. So now we just got to solve for a and b just like we did before. So to solve for a, we just have to multiply by sine of 85 degrees. So to get 4 over sine of 65 degrees times sine of 85 degrees. And now just plug this into a calculator. First I'll also write out the expression for b. For b we just have to multiply by sine of 30 degrees. So we get 4 over sine of 65 degrees times sine of 30 degrees. Now these expressions both need to be plugged into a calculator to get a decimal answer. And so I do just that. I already have the calculations prepared. And get 4.40 for A and 2.21 for B. So now I'm just going to label it on the diagram. It's 4.40 and 2.21. Those are our answers. Alright, that's great. So now let's just do one more problem and really get the law of sines. This time it's a word problem. So once again we're going to need to make a drawing. So we have two fire spotters in towers A and B. So let's just make these two towers A and B. And they see a fire, so that's going to be the third point eventually. The distance between the towers is 100 feet, so I'm labeling that. And then here we have some angles. The angle between the fire and B from A is 37 degrees. So here I made a point, and I'm connecting these triangles, and that's the fire, so I'm labeling it as point F. And this is 37 degrees, and then the next angle is 56 degrees between A and the fire. So they've got all these degrees measured out, and the question is, what's the distance from tower A to the fire? So this is actually a really practical problem. Situations like these can arise. So to find out the answer, first, of course, we're going to have to find the third angle in this triangle. So once again, we know that the sum of the angles is 180 degrees. So we add them up, we get x plus 93 degrees is 180 degrees. So x is 87 degrees. Very close to a right angle. Great. So now that we have this angle, we're going to apply the law of sines. We have 100, and I'm just going to keep the feet out for now. We'll put on feet on our answer. 100 over sine of 87, the opposite angle, is equal to b, and the opposite angle from b is 56 degrees. So it's sine of 56. So since we're only asked for the distance from A to the fire, which is b, we don't need to use the other part of the law of sines. So we just solve for b, and we get 100 over sine of 87 times sine of 56 degrees equals b. And now I plug all of this into a calculator, and it'll give me the answer. B is 83.02, now I'm saying feet, because we want to have units on our answer. So the answer is 83.02 feet. Alright, thanks for watching this video lesson. I hope it helped.